Conflict has a way of staying, even after it's over. A disagreement happens. Something is said. A moment of tension rises. And even when the conversation ends, something remains. Not always clearly. Sometimes it's just a feeling, a slight tightness, a quiet irritation, a subtle sense that something isn't finished. And without even trying, the mind goes back to it, replaying what was said, reconstructing how it could have gone differently, holding on to what felt unfair or unresolved. And it doesn't feel like holding on. It feels like processing, like trying to understand, like making sure it doesn't happen again. But what's actually happening is the conflict hasn't ended. It's been picked back up, not in the moment itself, but afterward. And once that happens, it carries forward into the next interaction, into the way you see that person, into the tone of your day. A single moment expands into something ongoing, something that lingers, something that quietly shapes what comes next. And most of the time, it feels justified, because conflict feels important. It feels like something that needs to be resolved, something that needs to be understood, something that shouldn't just be left alone. But every once in a while, something different happens. A moment of conflict arises, and then it ends. Not because it was perfectly resolved, not because everything was said the right way, but because nothing continues it. There's no replay, no internal version of the argument running in the background. No need to go back and fix or defend anything. It just stops. And in that, there's a noticeable shift. Nothing is being carried forward. The moment doesn't extend beyond itself. It happened, and now it's over. And what comes next isn't shaped by it. You're not holding on to what was said. You're not building a position around it. You're not preparing for the next interaction based on it. You're simply here. And that can feel almost surprising, because without that carryover, there's no tension building, no accumulation of unresolved feeling, no quiet narrative forming about what it all means. It's just one moment, and then it's done. And what's interesting is that this doesn't come from trying to let conflict go. It doesn't come from forcing forgiveness. It's not about telling yourself to move on. It's what happens when nothing is holding the conflict in place to begin with. Because if nothing is holding it, there's nothing to continue. It ends naturally. Words are spoken, and they're gone. Reactions happen, and they finish. The moment moves, and then it's over. There's no need to carry it forward as something unfinished. No need to turn it into something ongoing. It was just a moment, complete in itself. And without that extension, something becomes clear. Most of what feels like conflict isn't actually happening anymore. It's happening in the continuation, in the replay, in the interpretation, in the version of the moment that exists only in thought. And when that isn't there, something shifts. Conflict loses its weight, not because it didn't matter, but because it's no longer being carried as something that still needs attention. It's finished, and that changes how you move. There's no buildup of tension over time. No stacking of past interactions. No sense that you're carrying a history into each new moment. Each interaction stands on its own. It happens, and then it's gone. And what's left is a kind of openness. You're not approaching the next moment through the lens of the last one. You're not holding onto a position. You're not preparing for what might happen based on what already did. You're just here, responding directly, without interference. You might notice it in simple ways. A disagreement happens, and a few minutes later, it's no longer present. Not suppressed, not ignored, just not there. Or seeing someone you had tension with, and noticing there's no residual feeling, no leftover reaction waiting to be triggered, just a new moment. It's subtle, but it removes a lot of weight, a lot of pressure, a lot of unnecessary continuation, because conflict doesn't actually need to stay. It doesn't need to follow you. It doesn't need to be turned into something ongoing. It can simply happen and end. And when it does, there's nothing left behind, nothing waiting, nothing carrying into the next moment, just a clean space for whatever comes next. If this resonates, you don't have to do anything with it. But if you want to keep exploring this, you can stay with the channel.